it's like an automatic little creating that kind of thing. So it's just kind of a fun thing. I've made these out of those giant kegs that like what's that beer? It's the green Dutch one.
Heineken?
Heineken, yeah. Heineken's like mini kegs, and I made like 2 rocket stoves just out of clay and perlite and some soup cans and these little rocket stoves. So these are pretty cheap. You can probably put one of those together for in the neighborhood of $15 if you want to. And even if you don't use it a ton, you can use it camping, and you can play around, and maybe it's a fun little thing, but it won't save you a lot of money because I looked it up, and it looks like to heat a meal costs about 10 cents. So you have to work pretty hard to be able to pay that off, you know. So this is maybe not the best investment, but it will help you if you want to go off grid. So if you want to get used to cooking outdoors and practice cooking outdoors and get to that point where you have that zero living expenses, that might be something to consider. Water heater on a timer. You know, we're kind of, a lot of Americans, we like that hot water all the time, but that is costing us, you know, anywhere from $6 to $10 a month. Yeah, you can buy, for $25, you can buy like a blanket that's specially made that will insulate your water heater. It pays for itself in 2 years, so that's that's a pretty short-term investment. Most businesses would be really happy with a 2-year investment that paid for itself, you know, and after that it's banked. You know, and this thing would probably last your lifetime, you know, no moving parts, you know, unless you have a house fire or something. You put the hot water heater on a timer, and you know, everyone takes their showers in the morning. Well, you make it sure it warms up in the morning, and then you're not paying for that heating all that other time. And I will caution you not to lower the water heater down to below, I think it's like 140 or 145. Legionella can, at 120 or 130, you save money, but it's probably not worth the cost of Legionnaire's disease because that bacteria can thrive in the 120 range, between 90 and 120, and it only gets unhappy at 130, and around 140 is when it can't survive. So even though it might be you're paying a little more, I don't know. If you don't take showers, you could probably get away with it. If you don't take showers, but if you do take showers, you're aerosolizing the water and you're breathing it in. That's how you get the Legionnaire's disease, and that's double plus and fun. And if that costs you medical bills, you've just not saved yourself money. If you go to the hospital for Legionnaire's, you've just
failed.
Yeah. Your liberty has not been increased. So transportation, you know, if you have 2 cars, do you really need 2 cars? I think you need to look deep in yourself, how bad do I really need this car, and how much is potentially not having to work worth maybe have a family with 1 car. And it's tough. You can rent cars when you need one, you know, if you only have occasional use, maybe once every other month. It might be cheaper to rent a car for $200 than pay 2 $400 car payments, you know. I take the bus. I actually enjoy it. I can listen to podcasts. I can read books. I don't worry about the cops pulling me over or red light cameras. It does take twice as long to get anywhere. But yeah, I get to meet people occasionally. I've enjoyed public transportation. It may not be an option for everybody if you're in a rural area, but consider the possibility of going to work on a bus, or taking the bike, or getting some exercise. That way, maybe it's like if you exercise after work. What if you could bicycle to work and then bicycle back home, and then you don't need that exercise? You save yourself some time, maybe. And you can still listen to podcasts, and maybe you can flip off that red light camera as you go over.
Rock on.
Wait for it to turn red and then go through and then flip off.
I've done this a few times late at night. I'm like, there's no cars. I know there's a motion checking camera right there. A little flash happens. They take a picture of my non-license plate. Carpooling, you know what I mean? If you know somebody from work and they live near, they have to pass basically by your house anyway. Geez, you could shunt them some money, and maybe you don't need that car payment. Maybe you can take, if you're paying $400 a month for a car, golly, if you just go get a different car for $200 a month, you've saved 50%. You know, suddenly you can bank that money. 50% savings right there. Getting rid of 1 car if you got 2. If you got them all paid off, well, if you got both cars paid off, well, keep them. I don't know. I mean, you got gas money, I suppose. You can save some money that way on bicycle. But yeah. Another thing too is debt. In order to save money, you got to get out from underneath your debt first. And if your debt is 4 to 6%, probably more than you can make on an easy investment or something like that. That actually, paying off your debt is probably the best investment. In fact, paying off your mortgage is a super investment if you've got a high interest rate, because the faster you can get that paid off, the faster you can actually start saving. Because your debt is working against you. Even if you invest that money and you make 4% on it, but your interest rate on your mortgage is 4.5%, you've lost 0.5%. You know what I mean? You would have been a better investment. You had paid off the debt rather than having a 4% return on investment through some kind of investment that wasn't secure. So there's that. Okay, yeah. Food expenses. All right. Cook your own food. Who cooks their own food? Excellent. Yeah. You can spend so much more money on processed food. You know, TV dinners, McDonald's. I mean, the double cheeseburger is a pretty good value per calorie, but yeah, the value meals are probably not. I feed myself for $4 a day.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, I was only able to do that after going like vegan, like plant-based. But yeah, I mean, $4 a day, you know, $100, $120 a month for one person, you know, $200 a month, $250 a month for, you know, basically my whole family. I mean, you can make extra, and it's all about buying inexpensive foods. They're also nutritious, lots of fiber, getting fresh vegetables in, you know, dried beans, dried grains. I know a lot of people around here don't like the grains, so there's alternatives. There's like millet. Millet is super cheap and it's not a grain. Barley is super cheap, it is a grain. There's amaranth and quinoa. Those are pretty expensive, but at least if you really don't want to get the grains, there's that. So there are kind of like options to play with in terms of how to get super cheap food. But sometimes, you know, if you want to play around, if you want something that's super tasty, you know, enjoy yourself. I want to talk about this later, but you know, cut out the luxuries, but don't cut out the fun. Don't cut out your enjoyments. If you just like love chocolate, keep your chocolate. Gosh. You know what I mean? Like, don't stop drinking coffee if you love coffee. I mean, coffee's not that expensive. Don't worry about, you know, keep the fun. Don't make your life miserable. If you make your life miserable doing any of these things, stop. You know, like, reevaluate. Because miserable is not what you want to be. You want to be free, right? Like, I don't want to be unhappy trying to be free. I want to be like, oh, yeah, I can do that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, buying in bulk. Farmers markets. Oh, my gosh. Sometimes I get such incredible deals. I'll go to the farmer's market when there's like an hour left, so the farmers know. So like, if you want good selection, go to the farmer's market early. If you want good deals, you go at the end. Because at the end, the farmers know they got to go home and they got to feed all that food to the animals. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be bad by the next week by the time they return. So like, they got all this stuff. They're like, oh, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to say? I bought 50 pounds of sweet potatoes for $5. Wow. You know, I've barely been able to carry my loot home. You know, I spent like $10. I fed us for like a week. Yeah, just incredible deals. You know, pickling cucumbers, tomatoes, all sorts of things. But also keep in mind that a lot of times the price will be similar to to the grocery store. So just kind of keep awareness of what prices are at the grocery store versus what maybe you're saving, and look for those deals and barter with them. You know, like haggle a little bit. Like, oh, you want that whole box of sweet potatoes for $10? Well, $5. Maybe we can meet at $7. You know, like they're willing to haggle because you know, they're not going to make any money if they have to take it home. They got to spend money to even truck it and do something with it. So they want to they want to unload it for the most part, especially as it's closing, and you can save that money. Again, buying in bulk. Right now, you can go on Amazon.com, and there's a company called Great River Milling, and they sell like 25 and 50-pound bags of all sorts of stuff: millet, barley, spelt. All sorts of things, and like I put these in 5-gallon buckets with a sealing lid and a little bit of Mylar bag. These things can last for indefinitely, really, 20, 50 years. You know, this food doesn't go bad until it gets wet, you know, essentially. So this is just food storage, an emergency. You got food, you know, and it's also your banking. You know, like that, you're like saving food for a rainy day. If you did lose your job, you don't have to worry about where your food's going to come from. You've got some stored in the attic, or actually you want to store it in a cool, dry place, so maybe more in the basement or something like that, in the garage if that's a cool, dry place. Yeah, there's gardening. Now, gardening, I have not found gardening yet to be a great investment, but it is fun, and it does practice. You do get practice growing things, which will be really super ideal if you want to get off grid and if you want to get those living expenses to zero. So you don't want to like never having garden and then you're trying to live off the land. That's probably not a recipe for success. You want to like have some experience with seed and soil, get familiar with that artistry, with those paints, and figure out how you want to paint that picture for yourself. What kind of plants do you like to eat? You know, a lot of beginning gardeners, they'll like put in a dozen zucchini plants, and then like they'll have 100 zucchini, and they'll be like, oh, I'm willing to about eat 1 zucchini a week, you know, and then like I don't know where you're at, but like I know a lot of gardeners where like they put zucchini in little paper bags, and then at night they put it on their neighbor's porch, because they know if they offer it to their neighbors would be like, no, we don't need any zucchini. And they're like, take the zucchini, take it. So, grow, and then it'll be all about what you, growing what you know, growing what you like to eat, and then figuring all that stuff out. There's an idea called copy canning, is that if you like canned goods, if you use canned goods, every time you use one can, buy 2. Put that on the list. And it's like a slow savings of food that you can then, so now I put one into use, one can into use, and one can goes into storage. And over time, you're actually creating an investment, a savings of food that can be used at any time. If you lose your job, you don't know where your money's coming from, you can always know you can feed yourself, and that supply of food is like what you like to eat. It's actually what you buy over the course of 2 years. So many people will go and buy MREs, and then they'll lose their job, and they open one up, and they're like, this does not taste like chicken noodle casserole.
One of the cool things about copy canning is you can actually decrease your bill because you find that once you've copy canned, you've got what you need, and you go to the store, you wind up just buying stuff that's on sale.
Excellent point. Yeah. Because you've got that reserve of food, you can wait for the sales.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great point. Yeah. So now,
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start doing that.
Green beans aren't on sale this week. I'm just gonna skip. I'm gonna skip the green
'cause
beans,
I've got
and I'm
10
gonna buy
of them in the
4 when they're on sale. Yeah. I know I got green beans, saved back there, and then that way you can chase the sales. Like every time the grocery store lowers something to get people to come in, you can just take advantage of all that stuff. They're selling it pretty much at cost to kind of drive business and get people to come in. You can get that. Vegetarian. I want to re-emphasize the vegetarian thing. I mean, you can. If you get giant turkeys and whole chickens, you're looking at like $1 a pound or less. That's great. That's a pretty less expensive, pretty low expensive food. But gosh, beans and grains are even less. Fresh vegetables can be kind of comparable sometimes, but it does take, in terms of actual production, it does take for chicken, it takes 6 pounds of food to produce 1 pound of chicken. So that's 6 pounds of food that could have been grown for human consumption. And so if you're looking at living off the land, the chicken might not be the most efficient thing unless the chicken is cycling waste. So the chicken can be an efficient producer if it's eating out of your compost, the stuff you would have thrown away anyway. But to grow food for chickens that you could be growing for yourself if you don't already have that might be about the most efficient thing. But the chickens can do work for you other than that. They can be scratching things up, eating bugs and pest control. And so there is some value for chicken. But I know there's probably a lot of meat eaters here, but I'd encourage you to give it a shot. Give it a lower, even if you want to keep the meat, fine, but reduce your quantity. You know what I mean? You don't have to buy giant pieces and have lots of meat. Give yourself that whatever that is you need, and then you've saved that much. Remember, even if you want to start with even as radical as 50%, if you can just reduce your meat by 50%, that's reduced your food cost by 50%, right?
Really? Oh yeah.
Well, you've reduced that part of your food cost.
Right. We spend a lot of money on meat.
Yeah,
So I'm
so expensive. And meat spoils.
we buy a half a cow or a quarter of a cow, or we do that.
Yeah.
But still,
Even
it's
then,
expensive.
Even then it's expensive.
And it can go bad too, so it's...
Yeah, if our power goes out, we have generator backup.
Right.
But
Sure, yeah.
still, we're paying for all that
Yeah,
power
yeah.
to keep
Power,
it. So
to
so
save
we are
that money on food. So here's where I want to say, I've given you a lot of different strategies, maybe how to save some money. Again, cut the luxuries but not the fun. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. If you try vegetarian, you're like, I just can't do it. Fine. Don't be miserable. Please don't be miserable. You'll never stick to what's making you miserable. You know what I mean? And that's not the point. You want to, there are some things like smoking and drinking alcohol. These are pretty expensive stuff, especially, you buying them at the store. I would encourage, I want to consider saving that money. But if you can't, if you're like, no, I want to smoke, I want to drink, brew your own, make your own wine, roll your own cigarettes. You can save a third, save 2/3 the cost on making these things. You can make microbrew quality kind of stuff at home in terms of beer for the cost of cheap swill at the store. Or you could make cheap swill for a third of the cost, however you want to do it. And then you've got that experience. You can actually start selling your beers. Maybe this becomes, if you really love brewing, this becomes a revenue generating thing. You can make wine at home. It's not hard. There's books and videos online. People explain it. Plenty of information available. Rolling your own cigarettes. The tax on cigarettes is very high. The tax on loose tobacco is much lower. So you can buy these little rolling machines, and they roll your cigarettes up for you. Maybe you can sell them to others and make some money under the table, agri style or something like that. But at least for you, they even have little filters if you like filtered cigarettes. I'm just saying, try if you can save 50% on cigarettes just doing that. You've you've got that part of your life, you got a 50% savings rate, and you're on your way.
I started growing my own beer in the first month I did it.
Yeah.
Who are you working at?
Because the investment of the equipment.
Yeah, but by the third month it was half the price.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of these things are investment. You're kind of saving money in order to invest money so that you can get a return on the investment. That's what all these things are.
Well, that's like with the rolling the cigarettes, you know, the cigarette rolling machine, all that
$50
talks about, you know, as much as a carton, and then after that, you know, we're spending, you know, $10 a carton.
Yeah.
$10 a carton. Yeah. Holy crap! I didn't realize it was that even good. Wow. Coffee shop coffee. You know, you can make some pretty good coffee at home for that kind of money. I mean, I know it's convenient, but they make coffee makers with like clocks and automatic programmable stuff. Like you could wake up and like just pour that coffee out. I don't know. Yeah. So you know, bring a whole thermos to work, so all you and all your friends, and maybe they can pitch in some money or something to defray your costs, and then you're all saving money on coffee. And oh my gosh, this is like a lot of things. This is like quitting smoking or you know, trying to change your diet. It's so helpful to have other people, friends that are doing the same thing. So like, you know, just talk to people you know, like, hey, let's do this together. Like maybe we can. I don't want 50 pounds of spelt or spelt flour, but maybe if like we split it between 4 of us, I think we'd all want to pitch in and get maybe like have 12 and a half pounds each, you know, something like that. And then everyone's encouraged, like everyone's saving money, like, wow, yeah, I'm liking this. And actually, you can use like, even though you need a grinder to grind whole wheat berries into flour, I've actually used wheat a lot like rice. It just takes a lot longer to cook. Like the whole wheat berries, they actually have an interesting little texture. They're kind of chewy. If you let them cook for an hour or so, they're just like a rice in your soup or your meal, or your casserole. All right, yeah. God, you know, I like the idea of like meal sharing too. If you got some neighbors that are close, you know, like maybe like you could even like once a week each person cooks for everybody, and you're out on your patios and you're sharing these cheap, inexpensive meals, and everybody's saving. And you're not only saving the money by buying in bulk and inexpensive meals, you're saving the time you would have spent cooking. Because now I only cook once. You know, I cook 2 days less because I have 2 families that I'm cooperating with. And so now you're spending that much less time doing that kind of thing. I think like saving my time, living my life a little bit freer. I like that idea. I'm really jiving on that slice of liberty pie. And this is my recipe again.